Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforests, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Welcome back to the Four Visions Market podcast. Today on the show, we welcome Adam Roa, an artist, poet, coach, and founder of the Create community, an online personal development community for creative leaders. Adam has been listed by Goldcast as one of the top 33 game changers to watch, and his viral poem, You Are Who You Have Been Looking For, has been viewed more than 200 million times. He has spoken on countless stages, including Oslo Freedom Forum, Mind Valley A-Fest, and Envision Festival. Adam combines years of experience as a personal development coach and over a decade of experience as a filmmaker and performer, blending the two worlds in a way that encourages others to see life as art, as evidenced in his podcast, The Deep Dive with Adam Roa, which was listed by Disrupt Magazine as one of the top 21 podcasts to expand your mind in 2021. In today's conversation, we dive into a lot of beautiful topics. Adam is a firecracker, and his channel is crystal clear as he drops wisdom and truth. Adam talks about how plant medicine has played a crucial role in helping him to access greater understanding of who he is and his mission in the world. We talk a lot about creativity and how creativity is an access point to being a vessel to let the force of life flow through us, as well as how it is an incredible tool to help process and integrate life's lessons. We also discuss the concept of impact, what it means to widen our focus and to step into service to the collective human consciousness. Adam shares some really helpful tools in overcoming victim mentality and finding forgiveness and reconciliation through our life experiences, utilizing them as mirrors to further our evolution and growth. At the end, we are blessed by a rendition of Adam's poem, Heaven, which sent shivers down my spine. Buckle up, family. This one is an episode for the books.
A quick word from our sponsors before we begin this episode.
When working with powerful plant allies and teachers, we're given a new awareness and a deeper understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and the energies in our lives. One of the most challenging parts of working with plant medicine is integrating the experience. In ceremony, our plant teachers show us the path, but it is then our responsibility to take action in our daily lives. Mushroom microdosing has helped me tremendously in this process, allowing me to keep messages and insights from ceremony in the forefront of my awareness. This is key in the integration process because it helps us to bring the technology of the ancient wisdom we receive through ceremony into lasting, sustainable transformation and change. If you are looking for the right place to source high-quality, ethical, made-in-prayer mushroom microdoses, look no further. Four Visions Market is proud to endorse Connect Chocolate in their 30-day microdose protocol. Visit connectchocolate.life and use the code FVFamily for 10% off your first order. According to a journal published by the National Library of Medicine, individuals who microdose describe a wide variety of psychological benefits, including enhanced creativity, increased energy, improved social ability, sharper focus, stronger analytical thinking, more positive mood, improved memory, and increased mindfulness and general sense of well-being. Connect Chocolate was founded by a member of the Four Visions community, and their mission is to cultivate kinship with earth and spirit. This 30-day at-home treatment will take you on a journey to support your emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being. Go to connectchocolate.life or visit the link in our show notes. And remember to use the code FVFamily for 10% off your first order. Well, welcome, Adam. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to get to speak with you and to get to hear a little bit about what you've been up to and what you're doing in the world. So thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Mariah. Thank you for reaching out and having me. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. Well, I would love to get to start with just a little bit about who you are for those of our listeners who perhaps are not tuned into your platform and the work that you're doing. So maybe you could share a little bit from the lens of, what your life purpose is. Who is Adam Roa, and how did you get to be doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah. So who is Adam Roa? I think is a question I'm still exploring. I think it's right. It's a constant exploration, and I would say that for me, what feels like my dharmic path is to help people utilize creativity as a modality for personal and spiritual evolution. So that looks like me living that first and foremost. I have my own artistic expressions. I think the one I'm most known for probably is my spoken word poetry. I had a poem called "You Are Who You've Been Looking For" that has gone on to be viewed 250 million plus times. So that's a really big part of what I do. And then on the other side of that, the intersection of personal development, I've been a personal development coach since 2013. So a decade now of high level one-on-one coaching, leading retreats and workshops and masterminds and that world too. And blending the two is really what lights me up, is helping people utilize their creativity as the gift and the tool that it is for us to grow and expand.
I love that. And, one of the things that really stood out when I was preparing from this interview and getting to learn a little bit about you is how much you're doing, how much is really coming through you, not to mention your work as a coach and your creative mastermind and community that you're building. But, you're running 2 podcasts. So right away, just when I saw that, I was like, wow, he has a lot of life force moving through him. He's doing a lot right now. So I'm curious, where do you get that drive, that passion to be, in service and to be catalyzing and moving so much energy through you and through your offerings?
I love that you said that, because I was journaling this morning and was writing that I think I've been so much in the doing. And right now I get to lean into a bit more of the ethereal sort of liminal space where I spend time just dreaming and visioning and imagining. And so I appreciate the reflection. And it's, if that's any indication, I think it's a continual dance. I think that listening to my inner guidance system and that can be partly me and probably mostly spirit and God or source or my higher self, whatever the words are that we use to describe that. And I think that the sweet spot is when what I'm doing actually energizes me. So being on podcasts, for example, recording podcasts, that's an energizing experience to me. Leading events, group coaching programs, that's an energizing experience to me. Being in the operations on the behind the scenes as CEO of my ecosystem, that's the most common place that I feel drained. And it's why you'll see me do tons of external doing and putting content out and whatever, because that's the thing that I feel I could do forever. And so there are seasons though, and there have been seasons where I've gone off of social media and have barely posted things and stopped all of my offerings and gone very internal. And in those times, the idea of doing an Instagram story, for example, feels like pulling teeth. And the idea of just laying on the couch and dreaming up a vision feels actually energizing. And so I think this dance is about listening to the seasons of our own inner guidance and continually having the intention set of a life that we want, because our guidance system is not random. Our guidance system is guiding us somewhere, and we are not passive in that. The intentions we set for our lives are what calibrate our internal guidance.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And I think that we often get so caught up in the doing and the ability to slow down, to find the balance, to do the other elements of the non doing that nourishes us. That is truly what brings forth the action from a much more aligned place, a much more inspired place. So that's a wonderful reminder. I think that for any of us who are cultivating our gifts, cultivating our offerings to the world, to listen to those moments to go inward, because it's so important and crucial for us to continue aligning and coming from that true place, and really checking in and getting nourished by spirit, getting nourished by that creative life force. And to me, my understanding is that's a lot what you help people with in your creative community, and as far as unleashing and activating our creative potential. I'm curious if you could share a little bit more about this concept of creativity, because it seems to be like the backbone of a lot of coaching and the way that you support people in and activating their potential.
Yeah. So I believe that our creative energy is the purest expression of our soul's frequency. Right? Everything is energy. I believe that the audience listening to this believes that and feels that and has probably had some experience of that, especially in the medicine space. There's this understanding, this feeling of, wow, everything is connected and it's all just energy. It's moving around. And that means all of our ideas, our emotions, they all have a frequency. And so HeartMath Institute has done a lot of research around that and the toroidal energetic field that our heart emits and receives. And so if everything is energy and we are starting to understand the healing power of frequency, then it's important to look at, okay, what are going to be the most beneficial frequencies to expose ourselves to? This is where now we've seen an explosion of the sound healing. Sound healing ceremonies are everywhere now. They've exploded everywhere. And the idea behind them, besides being just relaxing, is that these are frequencies like 432 that are being put out into the space, and you on a cellular level are receiving those frequencies, and they're creating harmonics within your body that are going to be healing. They're going to be helpful, that are going to be beneficial. Well, I actually conceptually can't think of a more powerful healing frequency than your own soul signature flowing through your body. And so the more we could allow the purest expression of our soul frequency to express and move through us, the better. And that to me is expressed as life force energy. And life force energy is going to express in two ways. One is sexual. Right? We go into our life force, our creative energy, the energy of creation can be expressed sexually. And the other end of it is creatively through what we create with that life force energy. And so, I mean, there are some people that will try to go around and just have it be sexual all the time and do it. And that's cool. And for most of us, there's a time and a place for that. But the other end of the spectrum is infinite in terms of that expression, the creative energy. And how I know, because people always say, well, how do I know that energy is really my soul signature? Well, if I gave all of the listeners to this a creative assignment, and I said, I want you to write a poem, and we're going to make this as specific as possible. I want you to write 4 lines. I want the rhyme scheme to be A, B, A, B, and I want you to write it about your first love. And I gave it that specific. Every single person listening to this would write a different 4 lines. I would be shocked if out of 1 million people, we got even 1 line that was actually the same. And so that's an indicator that your creative expression, your creative energy is like a fingerprint. It's completely unique to you. The way that creativity moves through you and expresses itself is completely unique to you. And so if it is your life force and it is completely unique to you, then I believe that one of the most beneficial, if not the most beneficial thing that you can do for your own growth and expansion is to allow that energy to be cultivated and expressed and move through your system. And the laws of the universe, when you move energy, you create a vacuum and more energy fills the space. And so if I'm moving creative energy, more is going to flow to me. If I stagnate and I don't express, I don't get more life force. I am left with that certain amount. And so even coming full circle to what you said earlier, I get so lit up by expressing creatively because the universe just gives me more life force as a result of that. And so that's the macro of the creativity as a modality beliefs that I hold. And then from there, I go into the actual supporting people in getting the most out of it. Once you've believed that, once you accept that premise, well, the next step is, okay, well, how do we actually do it? What are the steps to doing it and getting the most out of it and being efficient with it and really squeezing all the juice out of that? And so that's really where my coaching and my programs and stuff come in.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. I love it. And it's so needed at this time because we're living in a society where we're valuing, just so many of us are valuing being part of the greater system and not thinking for ourselves, not developing this unique signature, and being afraid to really get to know ourselves in our uniqueness, in our authenticity. And so to be able to see it as that catalyzing force, as that gift that we can utilize to then actualize and harness our fullest potential. To me, it's a really beautiful principle that guides, your work and the foundation of your work. So I really resonate with it. And I want to ask you how your work with plant medicine has potentially affected this relationship with your creativity. And if you could share a little bit more about, your studies with the plants and how your journeys perhaps have unlocked certain understandings regarding our creativity. Because I know that for me personally, like the plant medicine journeys are really pivotal thing in awakening that unique signature for people and of being able to tap into this authenticity and this part of us that makes us unique, but also one with all of creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that plant medicine has been, without a doubt, the greatest teacher in my life. A close second would be a 10-year romantic relationship that I had with a woman who pulled me forward in so many ways. And I think that with plant medicine, I can remember when I was, I think 18 years old, and I did psilocybin mushrooms for the very first time. And I was looking at this pillow on the couch, and this pillow had all these individual threads. I could see just individual threads all across this pillow. And there was one thread that was loose or whatever, and I pulled it out. And I remember thinking, wow, the only threads that know that this thread is missing or gone are the ones right around it. The other side of the pillow has no idea that this thread is gone. And I thought, that's me. That's us. I don't want to be someone who leaves this earth and only the threads around me feel the impact. I actually want the entire pillow to feel the impact of my presence and when I'm gone. And it was that wholeness, oneness, individuality, but also everything moment where I went, I need to expand my vision of the impact I want to make on this planet. And that was at 18. And so from that all the way through to my spiritual awakening in 2013, which came through ayahuasca, as someone who was basically borderline atheistic, definitely agnostic, going into ceremony out of pure desperation because it seemed like life was just beating the shit out of me. And then I went into that, and 2 ceremonies, 2 nights in a row, suddenly my logical mind believed it would be far more illogical to think that everything that had happened in those ceremonies was a coincidence. The logical thing for me was actually, okay, there's some other force or energy at play that I can't see, but now I really believe. It required me to get my logical mind on board. I'm such an analytical, logical person. And for so long, people seem to think that those 2 aspects, the spiritual and the logical, are almost trying to disprove each other, or counterintuitive. But I find that all we're seeing as we discover more scientifically is science is simply now giving us a language to explain things that ancient texts have been talking about forever. So the more that we learn, it brings us closer in understanding to the truth that it's all one. There is no separation between spiritual and logical. They're actually just languages. I see spiritual as a language of emotion and metaphor and meaning, and it's the feminine. And I see the logical as a language of linearity. And so that's very masculine, and both are true. They're always true. And so to me, my relationship with the medicine has been the biggest guiding force in my life. And I regularly go back to the medicine, whether that's another psilocybin journey or it's a, month-long dieta down in Peru with ayahuasca. I've done these things because I want to be a vessel for the medicine to work through me. And that is a relationship that I try and instill with all of my clients. I led a mastermind last year called One Infinity, where part of the mastermind was 2 medicine retreats. And we went down to Peru and did a full 3 ceremonies where we actually got to make the medicine alongside the shaman and have this beautiful experience. And the premise of that mastermind was, for all these people, you're already successful. You've already done so much in the 3D. What would it look like if you opened yourself up to a partnership and a cooperative teamwork relationship with the medicine to work through you? And I've been operating that way, I would say probably for about 6 or 7 years now, of really literally go into a ceremony and say, hey, what do you want me to do next? What's next? Or I'm working on this project. Hey, how would you like to speak on this project here? And it's led to some of the most magical, magnificent events and experiences in my life. And so I will continue to do it until I get a clear message to stop.
Thank you for sharing. I love that. And there's so many different elements there that really resonated. I think that this experience you shared of coming to the medicine, realizing that there has to be something more, and the ways in which you were suffering in the linear mind and not having a connection with the greater force of life and all of creation, right? You were feeling cut off and separate. And that first experience with the medicine helped you to connect with nature and connect with all of life. And that oneness is like a seed that really sparks so much more potential and creativity and impact that we can then bring out into the world. And I think it's so cool when you get to hear about ways in which people who are living very much in, modern society are utilizing the medicine to receive counsel and guidance and clarity on projects and actual, things in the 3D that we're bringing forth into the world. Because to me, it really just speaks to the power of this time that we're living in and the ways in which these ancient cultures are being more accessible to us, and specifically in the last 10 years, and what it means for society as a whole when more projects are being birthed and coming forth through sacred connection with ancestral plants and ancestral lineages. So it's so cool to get to hear the ways in which that you've used plant medicine to clarify and to crystallize your offerings and what you're doing in the world, and really, really inspiring. So thank you for all the good work that you're doing and the way in which, you're sharing your story with us today. I'm curious a little bit more on this concept of impact, because that's a really big one, talking about your story and how, you came to this realization that you want your impact, your legacy, the blueprint or the print that you leave upon this earth, you want it to ripple out to more than just your close circle. That's a big one, and I think that that's really, when we're talking about being leaders in a new world, in a new vision for humanity, it takes people being willing to think outside of our small little web of circle and think bigger, expand our vision, and really be willing to be in service to where we can go as humanity, in service to the evolution of collective human consciousness, and start, oftentimes we're so focused on the I, and we have this like micro vision, and all we can think about is our well-being and the well-being of our close loved ones and our family and our kids. And so to start to think about the bigger collective, it's not something that we're really conditioned to in our society, right? We're not really a we-based society. So what did that shift look like for you when you started being in service to other people that perhaps you didn't know, right? That's a big one. Like when we start wanting to show up and make an impact for people outside of our initial circle. And then how do you utilize that relationship with service in your offerings? How has it transformed your life and the way the trajectory of your life has taken? If you could elaborate a little bit on that concept of impact and really spreading our message, spreading our voice and our medicine with the world.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that there's been various stages of it, of what I think impact means and what I've done to make my life about impact, because our definition of impact is going to shape the action that we take to make that impact. And over the last few years, really it shifted for me, and it's exemplified in a line of poetry. I have a poem called Heaven, and the first line is, "The most impactful thing you can do for the world is learn how to love life." And that to me is 100% the fundamental baseline, foundational truth of how we make impact. If you do not love life, I believe that your work is there, because the idea of impact, I am impacted so deeply when I'm walking down the street with my dog and encounter someone who's just full of life, loves life, is bubbly. They're like, "Oh my God, your dog's so..." And we have a 30-second interaction that leaves me feeling good. And imagine now you walked around and everyone you encountered had that impact, where every person that you passed on the street, every person that served you food at a restaurant, every person you had a Zoom call with, every friend, family member, if every single person you came in contact with was someone who really loved life, that's contagious. By the end of every day, it doesn't matter where you started, by the end of every day, you would feel so good. And to love life is not a naive thing. It's not putting your head in the sand or turning a blind eye to stuff. Loving life means first accepting life, accepting that there is shadow, that there is darkness, that there is pain and suffering. That is a part of this human experience. And there are so many people that I meet. No offense to my family out in Bali, but my friends and family out there in Bali are a great example of this vortex spot where people go and fall in love with the whole life and everything, but they're able to do that because they ran away from problems that they felt were back in the United States, wherever they were. They couldn't deal with the homelessness in LA. They couldn't deal with the consumerism that they felt that they saw in all these ways. And so they retreat to somewhere and say, "Oh, I don't see it. It's out of sight, out of mind, and now I can love life." I think that that's a really insidious way of holding on to a actual hatred of life. There's a part of life that's too difficult to accept, that's too difficult to see. And therefore, I'm going to turn my head over here and just pretend that it's not real and find a place where I have no perceptions of it. I'm not saying that you need to go and live on Skid Row. I'm just saying that it's very important to recognize when there's a resistance to the darker aspects of life. And when we can see those aspects of life, see them, feel them, allow ourselves to recognize their existence, still be wanting to shift them, We can still say, I want to shift that. I'm going to move my energy towards that. And when we can do all of that and still love life, that right there to me is the most impactful thing you can do. You figured something out. You figured something out that the rest of the world has not. The reason why all these people are, out there on the internet just insulting other people, the reason why there's all these angry marches in the streets, Republican, Democrat, and this side, that side, finger pointing, and all of it that's happening right now is because these loudest voices are people who do not love life. There's an aspect that they absolutely can't stand. The idea of living with that in their life just is so immeasurably not okay that they put their energy, it angers them, and the anger becomes the thing that they utilize as motivation to take action. And I think that for me, I want to encourage people to figure out how to embrace all of life while still simultaneously saying, I will put energy into shifting that which does not feel in alignment with the world I want to see. And the final piece around this that I want to add is that we are all out here trying to create a world that we want to see. I make no mistake. I want to see the world look a certain way or not look a certain way. And that is going to have some differences from you or the listeners to this. In general, we're going to have a lot more similarities probably than differences. That's why we resonate and we find ourselves on the same podcast and following each other on social media or whatever it is. And there's still going to be differences. And I don't make the assumption that my way is better, like empirically better, divinely better. It's just what I want to see. And you are, with Four Visions and everything, you are creating a world you want to see. And it's beautiful that we get to do that. And when we can remove what I see a lot in the spiritual community is this elitism of, because I put the word spiritual on it or conscious, or because I believe that this vision has been given to me by the medicine, or because I got this idea through a download from Lemuria or whatever it is, that because of that, my idea is somehow more morally superior. It's God wants it more than the other ideas. Listen, God doesn't give a shit. That might be confronting to a lot of people, but God loves everything equally. That's the paradox of God, of Christ consciousness, of oneness. It's all just one. There is no preference. That's why we came into separation, so God could experience different relative perspectives. Consciousness could expand through the various desires, but in oneness, there isn't even a desire. Literally, the desire to experience itself as separate from oneness, to have any sort of separation, any different type of perspective, is what creates separation to begin with. So the idea that God, and by the way, in ancient texts in the Bible, when we talk about Jesus, this is the same. Jesus loved the criminals and the lepers just as much, if not more, than the kings and the pharaohs and all of the things. And that's because there's a paradox. God is the victim and the perpetrator. God is all of it. And so the idea that I'm here living out God's highest desire, that to me, I let go of a long time ago. And I know this is kind of jumbled rant, but I'm hoping that what it does is let the listeners know that the impact that you create is when you love life. But don't put it outside yourself. The moment you put it outside yourself, that this is because God wants it, this and that, you're actually also removing the empowerment that God wants you to have, to come to earth and get to create a life that you want to lead so that you can love this existence. That we honor God by loving life. And so that to me is where the impact comes from. And the medicine, as much as the medicine may often give me specific ideas, it's the action that I take ultimately, which is also integration, it's the action that I take that will determine my level of happiness. And my level of happiness is how I desire to truly impact the world.
Mm. That was an awesome answer. Thank you.
I was
I
like, that was
love
a bit of a
that.
rant, but I was on one, I
It
guess.
was good. You were on one. But I mean, it was so beautiful. And really, what it comes down to, what I'm hearing is this call to value life and to value life in its totality. And this 100%, this is what we get from the plants. This is what we get from nature. My teacher, Taito Juanito, talks a lot about how many of us are just living in this cycle of no life, of not living, right? And so, this concept that we could be happy sometime in the future, we could be fulfilled when this happens and this happens and this happens in our life, or we could be happy if we move to, a far off island and we're happy and we're content in that bubble that we've created for ourselves. But how radical is it if we can choose to ultimate joy, ultimate contentment and beauty and fulfillment in this moment right now? And that is true medicine for the world. And whatever your life circumstances are, to be able to accept that in its totality and its completeness and choose life in that moment. And then, of course, then we go evolving and making the changes, the shifts, and working towards that vision of what we're wanting to bring more of in our life. But when we learn how to really give value to life, like you said, that is the ultimate honor and reverence to creation. That is the way that we show up. And it's also how we can give reverence to the plants, to these medicines, to these cultures, to these different healing modalities. The best way we can say thank you for the healing that we receive is by doing the work and moving forward in this concept of valuing the totality of our lives here and now. So I love that answer. It was spot on. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I believe there's a big difference between accepting life and condoning the things that are happening. Those are two very different things. You can very much be in acceptance that this has happened. I have gone through and I've spoken about it on my podcast and various other places about my sexual abuse and childhood trauma and the ways that in which I was raised, all of these things. And I've accepted that those have happened. And I don't condone the behavior. I don't say that's okay. It's not okay. I'm going to continue to do work through things like my nonprofit Surrendered Artist and various other platforms to create a world in which children are not being abused. I want to see that world. That's a world I'm working towards. And if I refuse to accept that that has happened and is happening, I'm actually just creating a resistance that empowers the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big piece for people listening.
Yes. Okay, so since you mentioned that, it was on my list of topics I wanted to talk to you about, this concept of overcoming victim mentality. I think it's a big one when we're starting the spiritual path because there are things that are out of our control. And part of, our own empowerment is finding peace and acceptance with what has happened in our life that was out of our control, and then utilizing it as a catalyst to move us forward in our evolutionary journey. I would love if you could share a little bit about it, whether it be from your personal experience as well as, your understandings as you teach and coach others about how to overcome this. Because in my experience, it seems to be that nail that kind of stays or the thorn in the side that a lot of people have a really hard time getting over. Like they'll be on their healing path and they make so much progress, but that story or that belief of the victimhood, it stays, and it's just such a big burden that people carry. And so I'm curious if you could share a little bit about how one goes about finding this empowerment through overcoming the victim mentality and really seeing ourselves as co-creators in our life.
Yeah, I believe that we can be victimized. We can be victims in a moment, but it's our choice whether we choose to carry a victim mindset or a victim mentality forward from an experience. And what I believe to be true about overcoming the victim mindset is we can let it go when we've learned to see the gifts in it. That to me is the number one piece. Is for most people, myself included, that have at times been caught in a victim mindset, it's because I had not yet identified the gifts of the experience. And once we are able to identify the gifts that were given to us through that painful, traumatic event, in that moment, we now open the door for forgiveness. Because forgiveness to me is not just about, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook. Forgiveness to me is actually, and this was something that, my sexual abuse was a repressed memory. And that repressed memory was given back to me through 2 nights of ayahuasca. And the first night it came back, and then the second night was confirmation, because I woke up the next morning and went, there's just no way could that. And so after, when it first happened and I first was shown the memory, I cried tears of joy. I was so grateful, because it felt as if I had finally been given the missing piece that I knew was missing. I could feel was missing. And suddenly it was as if my life made sense. Why I was the way I was, why this and that. And to have been for 30 years, I was 30 years old at the time, basically. And the event happened when I was 5. So for 25 years, I had been living a life with such an important, crucial piece missing, and I couldn't put things together. And then in that moment, when I was crying these tears of joy, I wanted to call this individual in, their spirit in, and forgive, and say, I'm ready to forgive. How is this a gift? Let's go. And the medicine taught me something really powerful, which was, she kept saying no. And I kept trying to call in this soul, and grandmother just said, no. And I said, why not? What is the issue? And she said, now is not the time to forgive. Now is the time for you to actually sit with and understand how deeply impactful this event has been on you. Because without that information, I'm not capable of giving actual full forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Without understanding the depth at which this event and what this person did actually impacted every area of my life. Without that, I don't get into the little nooks and crannies and crevices inside of myself to offer forgiveness. I am actually in that moment very quickly, by wanting to be like, okay, I can forgive you, I'm bypassing the opportunity, the gift of following that thread of energy, of victimization, of following that thread into all the places that I'd been impacted. And only from that place of understanding can I offer forgiveness, truly offer forgiveness. And part of that is in seeing the gift, because as you explore, there is a gift and a shadow to everything in life. And so as I'm exploring the places in which I realize, oh, wow, this is why I have intimacy issues. This is why I have a fear of sexual energy. This is why I have blah, blah, blah. In those are gifts that I've developed in order to deal with those aspects of myself. And so the exploration of how deeply it impacted me is also the scavenger hunt of finding the gifts. And as I find the gifts and I recognize how deeply impactful the event has been, I'm able to offer more fully, offer my forgiveness. And so I think that's a really important piece around victimhood and victim mindset.
Mm. Thank you so much for that. And I think that just highlighted some really helpful tools for people who are wanting to forgive or thinking that they have forgiven, or maybe gone through all the processes that one should go through to forgive, but they're still feeling resentment or they're still feeling the pain. And so, for me, what you're describing is the process of reconciliation. And this is really so important in the forgiveness process, to be able to integrate into the fibers of our being the lessons, the teachings, and the gifts that came through the event or the experience, the impact that we had, that caused this build up within us. And so, yeah, I really resonate with all of that. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's really so helpful, because so many people, they want to understand why they're still feeling heaviness in the body when they think about a relationship, or they think about a memory or a circumstance that happened, and they don't get it, right? They are stuck, and they're like so attached to this idea that they have forgiven that person or that circumstance or themselves, and that they're not holding on to resentment. But if it's still there in the body, if it's still coloring the way that you think about that situation, if you can't recall that situation from a place of love and gratitude, then there is a missing piece. And I think that you just very eloquently explained this process in a way that's really tangible and really helpful. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's been a long journey. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
long journey to find those pieces and work through them and develop understanding. And it's a huge part of where my beliefs around creativity come into play, because one of the deepest ways that we can uncover what's going on inside of ourselves without needing to logically find it is through creativity. The creativity is the opportunity for our unconscious to express, and our unconscious mind is our body. Our body is the hard drive in which our unconscious is stored, and all of that information somatically that wants to express is, when we try and logically trace it, we can. It's helpful. It's things like cognitive behavioral therapy and traditional therapies, and that's useful, talk therapy, et cetera. And you can follow it sort of linearly in that way. And writing a poem about it, dancing it out of your body, painting, whatever it might be, allowing for some form of expression creatively is giving a permission slip for your unconscious mind to speak to you, to speak through you, to speak as you. And when we do that, we gain a level of awareness that we previously didn't have. I write in the month of April. If you go back to my Instagram, I wrote a poem every single day and shared. That was my commitment. I will write a poem and share it on social media every single day. And that process was amazing, because while I've written a lot of poetry, I've never written that many in 30 days. I haven't done that before. And what it did was give me a very clear day-to-day reference. And I could see just how much I was able to tap into aspects of myself that were not conscious. In that process, I was able to tap into things that I believed that I didn't consciously know I believed, or feelings that I had that I wouldn't have been able to consciously articulate, but the process of creative expression gave an outlet for it. And I learned something about myself while writing the poem. And that learning is at a deeper level than if I had just sat and thought about it. And that's why we go to the medicine. That's why we want something that's deeper than what our conscious mind could just think up. We want a neurological pattern to reveal itself that we're not able to see before that. And creativity to me is literally that process. It's the process of putting together neurological patterns you haven't put together before. And so it gives us a modality by which we can uncover aspects of ourselves that we wouldn't be able to find otherwise outside of things like maybe medicine or breath work, just altered states. Creativity is its own altered state. So to your point of finding this, I think having some form of creative expression is the most reliable way that I've been able to be on this journey and consistently be learning and growing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And, you know, if we look at the ancestral cultures and we see the ways in which their traditional art forms are embedded into their ways of life, art in whatever form, whether it be, you know, in the creative expression forms that you're mentioning, or through weaving and traditional textiles, or singing and music, art is ingrained in all ancestral communities and all ancestral traditions. And it's because it forms this direct relationship with source, and it's a way for people to process life and the thought. A lot of the ancestral weaving cultures, they talk about weaving and organizing the thought through the process of creating a textile, or weaving and creating a mochila, a bag. And so this process literally is about aligning and connecting, reconnecting the threads of the web of life to harness the process of prayer in action. And so there's a lot of resonance. I love how you're sharing about these tangible, accessible creative art forms, because a lot of people, they'll come and work with us down in Colombia or in South America, and they'll see these traditional art forms. They'll be really inspired, but they have no idea how to integrate like a traditional weaving practice into their daily life, right? It's not very tangible for them to see the way in which that becomes part of their daily routine or practice. But something as simple as poetry, or something as simple as picking up a paintbrush, is so beautiful, because it allows people this ancient technology where, you know, this processing literally becomes part of the ceremony of life. And we all need that. We need those vessels, we need those access points to be able to tap in and get out of the mind and come into the heart and be able to process this existence of life, because it's a heavy one, right? And if we're all the time in the mind and we don't take that time to get out of the mind and come into this physical body, the experience of the emotions, then we're not doing ourselves any service by living in that only one-sided expression of life. And so this concept of creativity, it's very resonant, and I'm seeing a lot of ways in which, you know, the people who are listening to this podcast and who are really called and drawn to ancestral traditions may feel a really deep resonance to work with you in the ways in which you help people to unlock their creative potential in the modern world. And so I really think that people are going to really resonate with your message and who you are. And on that note, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you got going on and how people can learn a little bit more about you and work with you if they feel called.
Yeah, thank you, Mariah. I appreciate that. And for anyone who's interested in creativity as a modality, then I highly suggest that you check out my online community. It's the Create community. We're relaunching September 1st. So depending on when you're listening to this, the base level membership is going to be open then. And it's literally a place to create together with this mindset, with this viewpoint of a little structure to help you learn and grow through your own creation. And I am launching on June 1st. I'm actually launching the Creative Cocoon, which is a small online group program where I'm going to be taking people through a more in-depth version of that process, where I'm going to be giving creative prompts. I'm going to be giving mastermind style workshops and also Q&A group coaching, all utilizing your own creativity. Everyone will be working on their own projects throughout this 3-month journey and utilizing that path as a reflection mechanism, as a mirror for developing inner awareness and then integrating that awareness in a way that's helpful to the life that you want to create and the life you want to see. And so for anyone who is interested in that, I suggest you actually go to my Instagram, adam.roa, and just check the link in my bio, because that's always being updated, and you'll find the most up-to-date version of that. Or you can actually subscribe to my email newsletter, which is adamroa.com, ADAMROA.com. And you just go there. I actually have free journaling prompts as a gift for anyone who signs up for the newsletter. And basically, my email tribe and my text message community are the first places that I announce these sorts of things. And outside of that, anyone who wants I have tons of free content. So YouTube, I have 2 podcasts, The Deep Dive with Adam Roa, and I have You're Too Much, which I co-host with Taylor Simpson. So lots of free content out there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, I meant to ask you this before we hit record, so I don't want to put you on the spot. Feel free to say no, but I was wondering if you might be willing to share a poem with all of us before we close.
Yeah, sure. Always. I have a rule, actually. If I'm asked to do a poem, I always have to say yes.
That's a good rule.
It's a good rule. Well, I mentioned this poem at the beginning of the podcast, right? With the most impactful thing you can do for the world. So this poem is called Heaven. It came as I was exploring the concept of abundance and what actually abundance meant and what it meant to me. And it took me on a wild journey through self-discovery of what was important to me. And I'm excited to share it here in closing and to let everybody know it's probably about 4 minutes long. So if you can, I highly suggest you just pause what you're doing and really take this in for 4 minutes and you follow along and you receive it because it truly is meant to be medicine. And I encourage everyone to just, if you can, if you're not driving, close your eyes and take a nice deep inhale. The most impactful thing that you can do for the world is learn how to love life, all of life. Show people that being happy doesn't mean turning a blind eye to the pain and the sadness and the suffering that happens here. Show them that choosing love doesn't mean ignoring fear. It just means being willing to feel. And those brave souls will always heal as long as they maintain the courage to feel. Because the fear of feeling is really at the root of every fear, which creates a fear of living because feeling's why we're here. So you can fight the fact that feelings past have felt so freaking hard, but it's the very fact that you have felt all that feels like the part we should celebrate. Investigate. Learn to navigate with ease. Your emotions are the gift God gives you every time you breathe. Energy in motion with the strength to bring a king down to his knees and yet contained within emotion is the key to set you free. Yes, contained within emotion is the gift of what being human is, a chance to feel all of life from deep sorrow to deep bliss. And you might wish the two would split, but the twist is that they'll always coexist because even the heartbreak you hate today had the way paved by a lover's kiss. So you can write your list of how life's a bitch, but don't forget the asterisk because for all the times you went through shit, it fertilized a lot of gifts. But if we only focus on what we lack, we can't appreciate what we've got. But with gratitude for what we have, we can see that it's a lot. And that is the difference between abundance and scarcity. It's not about what you have, it's about what you see. So the next time you forget how blessed you be, take a moment and focus on the next breath you breathe. The next time you forget how blessed you be, take a moment and focus on the next breath you breathe. And notice you're right here with me. A miracle, a great mystery. Out of hundreds of trillions of stars and hundreds of billions of galaxies, somehow, some way, you're here today with me and we all breathe on a spinning sphere of chemicals spiraling through the universe. You were once one of 200 million sperm. You just happened to get there first. So how could you ever say you're cursed? You've been blessed since before your birth, and you might not think you have it best, but it could definitely be worse. And if you don't believe that yet, go tell the deaf what you just heard. And if you don't like what you see, go tell the blind how much it hurts. On your hardest day, when you really want to walk away, go tell the paraplegic how it's unfair. Share how you want to run from all your problems while he's pushed everywhere in a chair. And I'm not saying that life is fair or that it's easy. We all go through a lot, but as you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, don't lose gratitude for the fact that you walk. Celebrate the fact that you can dance and sing. Embrace the abundance in the very act when you talk. Because when you can spot abundance in the simplest things, that's when more abundance unlocks. The simplest things. Taste, breath, touch, smell. Did you know there are people with something called anosmia, which means their sense of smell is completely lost? So while they literally can't smell the roses, do you want to complain you don't have the time to stop? Because this life is the only one that you've got. And there are people who would trade places with you without a second thought. So no matter how many tears, heartbreaks, or bad days you pay, the cemetery is full of souls that know living is worth the cost. Don't wait till it's too late to learn that lesson. Living is worth the cost. But make no mistake, being alive is not the same thing as living. Just like throwing something away is not the same thing as giving. So if you haven't yet found your love of life, I suggest you keep on digging and allow yourself to feel your way through all the hurt and all the rage. And as you feel, allow yourself to finally turn the page. It's how we heal, and it might hurt like hell, but you'll have shown us we'll be okay to feel it all and still love life. That's heaven, and you'll have helped pave the way. That's heaven. Can you feel it? Heaven is here today. One last deep breath, full of gratitude, and exhale.
Thank you, my brother. It's so beautiful. Your medicine is a gift for the world. Thank you for all that you do, and for your service and your mission. Keep walking your path. It's a righteous one, and send you many blessings to all the good work that you're doing, and keep following your heart and sharing your medicine, your gifts. And thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You are very welcome, Mariah. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the work that you are doing. And thank you to everyone who is listening to this and taking the time to really be in the exploration of how to live our most fullest and loving life.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.